Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to Quentin Re2's the final video of 2022. Now, to those of you who are just finding this channel and previously know my content on my main channel, welcome. This is Quentin Re2's. This is where I do some of my smaller stuff, some of my little tiny project videos, things that are just jokes or just things I want to talk about that really aren't worthy of the main channel. And for the past few years, I've been trying to beef this channel up because I'd like to use it more often. But frankly, I'm as busy as I already am. But the second channel has grown even more appealing in recent years as the main channel has grown to be such a high standard, that I have to make it a video this good or a video this long. So I've decided I really want to start doing stuff for this channel, and I'd appreciate it if you hit subscribe. That's my call to action. 2021, I made a New Year's resolution for myself. I said, I'm going to make this the best year of my life, and I did. I went out there, and I had the best year of my life. I made the best content I'd ever had, and I had the best experience of my life in working with you guys, and it was only fitting that 2022 was the worst year of my life. I struggled to get through this year, and it was god-awful, and I'm grateful that I'm still here, and I'm grateful that you're still here. But a big thing about 2022, besides that, is that it's a very interesting moment for the character, wait for it, Garfield. Those of you who know me don't need to be told this, but Garfield is one of my favorite pop culture entities to ever exist. I love Garfield. I've loved Garfield since I was a child. There was a phase where everybody hated Garfield, and I kind of went along with it. But now that I'm so far into this YouTube channel, I'm willing to drop the irony. I just like this cat. I think he's cool, and I like talking about him. Now, here's why Garfield is in such kind of a weird spot right now. In 2019, Jim Davis decided he wanted to semi-retire and he wanted to sell the company and sell Garfield to someone else. In the end, the winning bid was Viacom and Nickelodeon. Now, this sale was first announced in 2019 and it was finalized, I believe, in early 2020. So since then, Garfield has officially become a Nickelodeon brand, a Nickelodeon property, and a Nickelodeon character. Now, here's why this is interesting. We're now in 2022. We are 2 years after Garfield officially became a part of Nickelodeon, and it's kind of a weird spot for the character. Here's what you need to think about. In my previous video, I said that Garfield was the most heavily merchandised cat in the history of humanity. Someone then pointed out to me, that Hello Kitty exists, so I'll admit I was wrong about that one. Hello Kitty is definitely more merchandised. But Garfield is in the running, and Jim Davis is one of the most wealthy authors in the history of mankind. He is extremely wealthy because Garfield is a merchandise titan. And Paws Incorporated had a massive bandwidth built up of keeping that merchandise organized, keeping it coming out, and keeping it unique. And I think that Viacom is building up that, I think they're trying to get comfortable with the character, because taking over Garfield and then trying to form a new team to merchandise Garfield, it's not an easy task. And the big thing you got to keep in mind is Garfield is a character who operates off of having a central core adaptation. Now, some of you might not know what I'm talking about. You might not understand what I'm going on about. Here's what I'm saying. The comics will always be the original. That will always be what Garfield came from. It will always be those newspaper comics. But every decade, Garfield is supposed to have at least one adaptation that defines how he exists as a character. So in the early 80s, when he first blew up, that was the Garfield TV specials, those early animated classics that gained, millions of viewers, were seen by everybody, that really explained to people what Garfield is. Some of the most timeless Garfield media you'll ever see. I really suggest sitting down and watching that media and understanding why Garfield became popular. Then you get to the end of the 80s and the 90s, and you get Garfield and Friends, which is a aesthetical spin-off of those TV specials. Garfield and Friends for years was the defining thing that explained to people who Garfield is, and why it matters that he exists. Then you got the Bill Murray Garfield movies, right? For years, Garfield was the Bill Murray movies, and then the most recent thing we've had is a 2010 Garfield animated series, 3D animated, which I want to say came out of France. But a lot of people talk about, like, Garfield, stagnation. Why is Garfield not as big as he used to be? The answer is really that since 2010, we have not had a new Garfield central adaptation. We have not had a new TV show. We haven't had a new movie. We haven't had a new thing that is extremely popular and defines what Garfield is supposed to be at that point in time. Now that Nickelodeon owns Garfield, Garfield is going to come back. That's just a fact, and you might call me delusional, but the two characters, I'm going to sound like a broken record if you've heard me talk about Garfield before, but the two characters that I most quickly compare Garfield to are Sonic the Hedgehog and Shrek. Now, do those of you who have been on the internet for a few years and are like hyper online, do you remember that era of the 2010s when everyone acted like Sonic the Hedgehog wasn't a real thing? Like, everyone was like, get a load of this Sonic the Hedgehog, isn't this a joke? Do you remember that? And then, we had Sonic Mania, we had the Sonic movies, we have a new Sonic game that, a lot of people really enjoy. And now that, all those three things have happened, people don't treat Sonic like a joke anymore. He's a very serious character that people feel comfortable being unironic about. Then you got Shrek. For years, people only talked about Shrek through a very shitposty lens. It wasn't a real character. No one really was like, yeah, I like Shrek, I think it's great unironically. Everyone was very jokey about it and very diminishing of, the content. And all Shrek only existed through like really weird, edgy content. And now it's come back, right? We're talking about there being a Shrek 5, Puss in Boots 2 is huge, Shrek Retold and all that. And now everyone's like, oh, but I actually think Shrek 1 and Shrek 2 are classic cinema. So despite the fact that a lot of people say I'm crazy whenever I go on about this, I truly think if Nickelodeon puts out a new Garfield movie and a new Garfield cartoon, there will be this wave of people who are like, I am comfortable saying, I unironically think a lot of Garfield media is great. I unironically like Garfield. And so we're in a weird point in Garfield history. That's the point I'm trying to make. We're at a weird point in Garfield history where I really think we're building up to that triumphant moment. I really think there is going to be a revival of sorts. But right now, Viacom is just preparing for that. So there's not a lot of huge news stories. There's not a lot of huge splashes, but you can feel the merchandise and the spin-off stuff really start to ramp up as we head towards 2024. So I thought it would be fun today if I went ahead and I showed you guys not every bit of Garfield merchandise I bought this year, because we'd be here all day, but every piece of Garfield merchandise that came out this year that I bought this year and I currently have. Do you understand? Because there's a few things that I pre-ordered this year that haven't come for some reason. But I thought looking at this merchandise would be a fun way to kind of show this year in retrospective. So this is an important tangent that you guys have to understand about Garfield. This is an aspect of Garfield that not a lot of people know about and is not widely talked about, but is one of the most important things you should know about Garfield. Garfield is a huge character and a huge brand in China, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. In those three areas specifically, Garfield is as popular as he is in America, more likely more popular. People in those regions really like Garfield and recognize him as an iconic character. And so that's why the first thing that happened with Garfield in 2022 was in Hong Kong at the start of the year, when there was a little Garfield celebration sort of thing of Garfield in the Year of the Tiger. There was this whole display put up, you could go and see it and take photos, and as well as that, there was also a crossover that happened around this same time. In these regions, there's another character who is more recent that is popular called Fatty. That's F-A-T-T-Y, not the kindest name, but they are a little comic character that is just a girl that likes eating. And because that is somewhat similar to Garfield as a pitch, there was this art display of Garfield and Fatty kind of crossing over as if, they were one brand. And there was actually exclusive merchandise sold at this event in Hong Kong, which you can't find in America because it was so obscure and exclusive. And I was so fascinated by this happening that I went ahead and bought one of the things they were selling, and I had it imported. Now, the thing I didn't buy was this gigantic, I believe it was a Fatty plush dressed up with Garfield merchandise, and it was huge, and I knew if I tried to ship it in, it would be like ridiculously expensive and like not worth explaining to another person. So I didn't buy that because I knew it wouldn't bring me joy. It'd just be an ironic thing that I had that was too big. But the thing I did buy because it was so small was this Garfield X Fatty little ceramic toy. And now I want to bring this up to the camera. What it is it's Garfield and Fatty, and they're conjoined at the side, and inside they have a bunch of orange donuts. And when you turn it from one side to the other, the donuts move from Fatty to Garfield. And it's just this cute little thing. I wanted to have it. And it strikes one of those like weird, obscure moments in the Garfield brand history that would otherwise be very quickly forgotten. Garfield crossovers with other brands materialized as merchandise. That's a very fun thing to me. I hope we see more of that in 2023. Now, I believe this is the second thing that I bought this year. This is something that has actually come up quite a lot as memes. A lot of people have DM'd me about this after I already had bought it. This is a Garfield ambient light by Smoko, and it is branded Nickelodeon, so of course it would be, because Garfield is Nickelodeon now. And on the side it says, a light with lots of sass. And then this side says, the only light you need. And the big meme is that this guy is supposed to be like really bright. So the whole joke is people are like, they're not lying when they say, it's the only light you need. Okay, so this is what my set looks like in the daytime. When I turn off all the lights. This is what my set looks like in the daytime if I turn off all my lights. Which I'm doing, because this is the only light I need. It says that on the box. So, let's see. Oh my god. The thing about it is, it is not so bright in person. It does, give off like an orange hue around the room. Obviously right now because I have no lights on. But on camera, it looks so bright. It's hilarious. Like, I can look at this right now, and I can see all the face detailings. I can see the stripes. I can see everything fine. It's just glowing orange. But on camera, it's like this is some like ancient artifact, right? Like that I've unleashed on the world. The camera just really thinks this is the brightest goddamn thing on the earth. And that's what the meme is. When you take a photo of this thing, it looks ridiculous. Let's see, I'm going to try and take a photo. We'll see, So yeah, this one's just really funny. I don't have anything to say about it. It's one of the weirder things they put out this year. And like I said, it's kind of a meme. I'm going to set this like back here for the rest of the shoot. And when I turn the lights on, we'll see how bright it is. So here it is with the lights on. It's still pretty bright looking. Oh my god. Okay, so this is the thing that I waited the longest on. And this was supposed to come out last year. But it literally came out 12 months after they originally said it was going to. And I pre-ordered this the moment I saw it. And honestly, the sad thing is I think the gimmick of it had failed by the time it actually got to me. It's probably just that I was like kind of bitter that it took so long. But we're in a post-pandemic world. When you buy something that was manufactured in China, you're going to wait 12 months for it. So as you can maybe see on the side of the box, this is the Mighty Jaxx XX-Ray Plus Garfield. Now, so XX-Ray / Mighty Jaxx, they're this company that are famous for selling statues of iconic characters, but like with half of their face gone. So like the right half of their body will just be a skeleton or will just be muscles and that kind of thing. Now, the thing is, this is a gimmick that I think has gotten old. And another thing is, everything this company puts out looks like an NFT to me. And that's because they do sell NFTs. You can buy NFTs. There's NFTs you can buy that are like exclusive to one piece of merchandise. And, you know, I think I'm just done with XX-Ray Mighty Jax. I think the gimmick is over. And like I said, everything they put out looks like an NFT. But I bought this when this arrived, I want to say in like March, right? And I was going to make a video reviewing it. But they suddenly announced they were putting out like a blind box of like 20 minifigures. And I was like, well, this is coming out in like 2 months. I'll just wait for that. Those have also never come out. I don't know why I fell for that again. Clearly those are going to come out in like 2 years and I just pre-ordered them for no reason. So we're just going to review this right now. The weird thing about this figure, by the way, is that another figure with this exact same pitch came out in Hong Kong in 2019, which is just a weird coincidence, I guess. And also representative of the fact that, like, in Hong Kong, China, and Taiwan, they're, like, streets ahead of Garfield merchandise in America. Like, if we get something in America that's Garfield related, Hong Kong probably got an equivalent of that, like, 5 years ago. So here's the box. It says Garfield, and you can see his skeleton, and you can see his cat skull. Ain't that so funny? You get an image of him on the side, another image of him on the other side. Looks like an NFT, and then there's a thing on the back. Okay, so here he is. We're going to take him out of this plastic, and we're just going to show him in all his glory. No need to hide the reveal. Oh, he's got that, like, awful, like, he's got that awful, like, varnish smell. Oh my god, and he's got these weird, like, varnish marks all over him. He's just not evenly coated. It's very weird looking. Okay, so this is the XX-Ray Garfield. On the back, he has some sort of peel sticker. Does nothing. Okay, I'm gonna put it back on. I don't care. This feels like a pre-Viacom thing. This feels like something that was in the works since before the buyout, and Viacom just kind of had to go with it because it was already in motion. This doesn't feel like a thing that's like, this is the first Viacom Garfield merchandise to ever release. It feels like they inherited this from something Paws Incorporated set up, you know, before the buyout. But that's just my judgment. I'm probably wrong. But yeah, you know, it depends on how charming you find the idea. I do think it's pretty funny that he's filled with lasagna. Like, his skeleton is filled, like, he's ate so much lasagna that he doesn't have internal organs, it's just lasagna. That's funny. He has these, Garfield has this weird thing where sometimes his cheeks have dots, and sometimes they have triangles. This version of Garfield is triangles. I don't like the triangles. I like the dots. I think his little dimple should have dots. I'm not a triangle fan. And when I hold it, I think of all the waiting I did. I think of, you know, the 12 months I waited to actually get it after I paid for it. I think of the fact that it was sitting in my apartment for, you know, probably another 6 to 10 months when I was waiting to feel like recording a video on it. And I'm just very underwhelmed by the XX-Ray Garfield. So moving on, I just want to cover a few, like, physical, you know, Garfield figures before we move on to the Garfield plushies. First of all, this year we had 2 Garfield blind boxes. Now, I'm very enthusiastic about the blind boxes. We had 2 packs of these that came out this year. I think one of them was themed around dreams. This one is themed around fantasy. This is a sci-fi Garfield blind box pack. I've had so many people send me photos of these blind boxes in the wild. And earlier this year, I did a video reviewing the first blind box that came out. And several people told me it's one of the worst things I've ever made. So I had so many comments that were like, this video makes me want to fall asleep. I've struggled to get through this video. So I did a bad job of opening those blind boxes, apparently. And so I never got around to reviewing the second blind box. And I don't think I'm going to open it today because it does take you like half an hour to actually get all the stuff together. But I just want to say the Garfield blind box packs are probably my favorite pieces of Garfield merchandise to come out this decade so far. This one's random. A Garfield baseball cap came out on BBTS, so I bought it. And the cool thing about this is it has Garfield on the front, and then it has Garfield on the lid. So you put it on, and in theory, you kind of got Garfield in your peripheral all the time. So the big thing that came out this year that is 100% officially American is the Garfield U2's figures. These are figures that were put out by the company U2's, famous for collaborating with YouTubers and many Viacom properties, and they are just little figures in the U2's animation style of Garfield the cat. Now, if you'll give me a second to pull it out, I do have the Garfield Funko Pop, which I want to say was from like 2019. So this is the Garfield Funko Pop from 2019. For a while, I had like 4 of these because people kept buying them for me as gifts. And what ticked me off was it's always the same. There's like 3 Garfield Funko Pops, but people would always buy me this one because it was like $5. Like there's some rare Garfield. I don't like Funko Pops. You know, unless it's a character design that lends itself to being aesthetically pleasing as a Funko Pop. But even then, it's unclear, you know? Like, there was a Sackboy Funko Pop. Sackboy's already a fucking Funko Pop. They put out a Sackboy Funko Pop, and I thought it looked ugly somehow. I was like, they fucked that up, and I don't know how they did it. But I don't like Funko Pops, but people always buy me Garfield Funko Pops, but they don't even buy me the rare ones. Like, there's one of Garfield drinking coffee, that one's hard to find. There's one that's, like, got this, like, felted, like, texture. No, I always get the regular ass, just Garfield Funko Pop. He's crossing his arms like that one stock photo everyone overuses. And so I've dragged this out, just to compare and contrast the 2 figures, because everyone compares Funko Pop and U2's because they're the same thing. But everyone compares them, and both of these figures are based on the same stock photo. So I thought it would be helpful to actually pull them both out and actually show them next to each other, you know what I mean? Okay, so we're going to switch over to camera audio, I think, just for some up-close live reactions. I have never seen the U2's Garfield figure before. I've only seen it as the little, like, stock drawing or, like, a 3D model. Oh, I like it. I like it. Oh, and it's got the stripes. Excellent. I like it a lot more than the Funko Pop. I'll tell you that right now. I think that is a beautiful little figure. And there's another one we're going to open in a minute, but I just wanted to show these off, okay? So, this is the Funko Pop. Do you see that? This is the Funko Pop. And that's the U2's figure. Oh my god, the U2's figure is so far, is leagues ahead. Oh my god, the Funko Pop makes the U2's figure look like a Renaissance painting. Like, that is such a better, the Garfield colors feel more right. It feels a lot more like, just like the texture of it you can already see. It does have the triangles. I'm not a triangle Garfield fan. You can see that right there. Why is it like that? Why is it like that? Why is that, like, Garfield is such, like, a brand consistent character. There's, like, design documents, and you gotta get his nose quite right. You know, they send back notes when you try and design these things, but there's no consistency on if he has dots on his cheeks or triangles. Like, what's going on? Make a choice and choose dots. So that's the only thing I don't like about the U2's figures, that he's got triangles. I think the triangles look bad. Whereas the Funko Pop has dots, which are better. This is the thing about merchandise put out by Nickelodeon this year. So much of it is so basic. It's the stock photo everyone uses. That, like, awful stock photo I'm tired of seeing of Garfield crossing his arms. That's what this is. And here's the twist. I got a third one. I found this one in the wild. I found this one at a fucking Cracker Barrel. So this is my Cracker Barrel Garfield. It is a Christmas ornament. And look at him! He's doing the fucking pose. This is what you get approved this year. You gotta do that. Or you're not getting your figure out. So yeah, so that's the figures. I don't want to take it out because I will never display it. I'm not going to put it on a shelf. I mean, the U2's figure is beautiful. I might come and look at it, but I don't see a reason to take it out of the box. Now, the other thing that we're going to look at real quick is the second U2's figure. Yes, U2's got a second Garfield figure out this year, much like Funko Pop. I think this one is a little bit rarer, a little bit harder to find this one. And this one is based on a meme. There was a Garfield meme of him with like all muscly. I think it's from Garfield and Friends. And so that's what this one's based on. Yeah. The triangles really trip me up. Like, I just don't get why it's not consistent. But yeah. So this is the thing. This is a little Funko style figure based on a meme. This is where Garfield's going to be headed. Okay, you know, more and more every year we're going to see, because like, you know, there's a whole SpongeBob line of toys that's just internet memes, just scenes from the show that have been turned into internet memes, made into little, you know, Funko Pop figures. You know, American toy collectors are a big market. American toy collectors love memes. This is based on a meme. We're going to see a lot more of this in the future. The big thing, by the way, I have this like subconscious list of things that the Garfield merchandising hasn't done yet that I think it should, and one of the big things is John Arbuckle. You don't see John Arbuckle in Garfield merchandise. There's never been a John Arbuckle plushie. There's been like a John Arbuckle, I want to say KFC toy. There's been like a John Arbuckle stapler, I think. There's been all these odd things, but there's never been a figure that's like, this is, you know, John Arbuckle is not often merchandise. So I'm hoping if we do go in this direction, like the positive repercussion of it will be that because we're trying to focus on memes, so many Garfield memes are John Arbuckle. Maybe we'll finally get some like John Arbuckle stuff. Like, I would love to have, if you released a John Arbuckle plush, I'd buy the biggest one you're selling and I'd put it in the hammock, because I'd like to have a John Arbuckle plush, I'd like to have a Lyman plush. There's no Lyman merchandise, and humans in the Garfield world are just underrepresented in merchandise. I can't get the box back on. Real quick, I almost forgot to mention the most ridiculous thing I bought this year, which is the Garfield merchandise that turns you into Garfield. This was sold by the company Dumb Good, which is an adult clothing store. And it is a little Garfield denim ? It's a Garfield coat that turns you into Garfield. And I've worn this in a few like selfies and a few videos, and every time people love it. They freak out. They say that is the best outfit I've seen all year. You know what I mean? And that makes it absolutely worth the fact that this costs too much money. You can look up how much it cost. I paid for it knowing I was overpaying, knowing that I was being kind of like, you know, ripped off a little bit, but I paid for it knowing that every time I put this on, people are going to think it's the funniest thing they've ever seen in their entire life. So in that sense, you know, if you have the money or if you want to do a Christmas gift and want to spend a little much, this is a good thing to go for. And I'm going to take all this shit off now. Okay, so it's officially time to talk about Garfield plushies. Let's talk about some Garfield plushies. Okay, so this year, I have 4 Garfield plushies, which I bought, that came out this year, that I bought this year, that kind of represent the new wave of Garfield. You know, what Garfield is going to look like in terms of merchandise. Because most Garfield merchandise is plushies. That's just a fact. And, you know, I could look over here and I could ramble for an hour about all the eras of Garfield merchandise that is represented, you know, by this hammock. All the weird kinds of Garfield merchandise. You know, Garfield plushies from Hong Kong, Garfield plushies that came with DVD box sets, Garfield plushies that were sold in claw machines, Garfield plushies that were given away by insurance companies and banks, Garfield plushies that come from the original Dakin line. You know, there's so much history you can talk about with Garfield up on this plushie. And so when Nickelodeon took over Garfield, I wanted to know, what is their era of Garfield plushies going to look like? And today we're going to find out. So the first thing we should talk about is these brand new Garfield window clingers. If you didn't know, back when Garfield was a big thing in the 80s, the most famous piece of merchandise that came out of him was these little plushies that had suction cups on their hands so they could cling to car windows. Now, this became synonymous with the thing the Garfield brand was most famous for, that if you went on the highway, you were very likely to see a car drive by that had Garfield sticking through the window just kind of looking at you. Now, for a couple years, as a true fact, Jim Davis actually discontinued these because he worried they were oversaturating the character. But eventually they did come back, and this year there's been a huge reprisal in these being sold. And I can only imagine people who have heard of the window clinger phenomenon, upon seeing these on the internet, might go out and buy them. You know, a whole new generation of window clinger fans. These are interesting because Garfield has his claws out, which I haven't seen a lot of Garfield merchandise that has Garfield with his claws out. And it's a consistent thing across all these from what I've seen. If, like, the window suckers have their claws out, and I guess it's supposed to imply that Garfield is actually, like, holding onto your window with his claws. But that's a very unique thing. And then also the other weird thing is that one Garfield has a very neutral face, and the other Garfield has this wild face. And I ended up buying both just because I think it's a weird choice. That, like, one of these Garfields is freaking out, you know what I mean? One Garfield plush, by the way, that I don't have is the famous, like, Garfield where he's really fat and he's eating a slice of pizza. That came out this year, but I had pre-ordered it on a website, and it didn't ship until December. It didn't arrive at that website's warehouse until December. And I could have canceled the order and just, like, bought it on eBay, but I was very you know, I was incredulous. I was like, I pre-ordered on this website. I'm waiting for it to come out there. So, I've bought that, and it's in a warehouse somewhere, but I don't have it here. So, sorry about that. With that out of the way, the biggest Garfield plush, and one of the nicest Garfield plushies that I have actually physically been able to obtain this year, is this very cute plush of Garfield holding Pookie like this. Now, I think if you have a little kid, this is a great one to buy them. Like, you can, let's see, you can probably, like, slit Pookie out of there. Yeah, if you cut that string, you can, like, slit Pookie out. I think this is the nicest Pookie plush that's come out since the original Pookie in the 1980s. When I was a kid, I had two Garfield plushies. I had the, like, basic, like, him sitting down one, and I had the original 1980s Pookie plush. I had those two plushies, and I always thought all Pookie plushies after that have just failed to live up to that one. I think this one is so cute because it's got that nice texture. It's got that nice feel to it. It's got the buttons. It's very cute. You could see Garfield actually dragging this thing around. And I also like the texture on this plush. I like the mouth feel. It's a very cute plushie, and I like that they're experimenting this year a bit with Garfield doing different expressions, not just like eyes open with a smile or eyes half shut with a smile. This year we've had a frowning Garfield plushie and a Garfield with his eyes closed plushie. That's a very unique look, and I like that they're experimenting with that. If you've never seen me before, this will sound deranged. This segment will just sound like I'm a crazy person. Okay, so this one's weird because it's the only plushie I bought this year that is not actually Garfield, and I bought it for a stupid reason, but I still want to show it off. So this is normal. I want to say this is probably, certainly, one of the biggest plushies they put out this year. It's kind of big. It's, a little taller than my head, and it's just normal from Garfield. And it's always interesting to look at these plushies and study how they do the stripes, because you see some plushies do the stripes solid. Some do them as like a Charlie Brown zigzag, and some do them just as the little circles. None of those are actually accurate to the comics. I'd love to see one day to see a Garfield plushie that actually has the authentic, like, little effect that's actually in the comics. But so this is a normal plushie, and it's pretty big for normal, and it's weird in scale that, like, to have a normal plushie that came out that's bigger than most Garfield plushies. And I bought it for a stupid reason. The only reason I bought it is I thought it was funny and kind of cool that this normal plush is relatively in scale to the big Garfield plush. Do you see what I mean? Like that's that's almost comic accurate scaling. Like, if normal was maybe that big, it would be pretty accurate. And I just thought that was funny, that it was like, it got a big normal and it almost scales up to my big Garfield. That's the only reason I bought this. I will not display it. I just thought that was a convenient thing to have if I ever need to do that as a joke or something. So we're almost done. I only have one piece of Garfield merchandise I bought this year that I've prepared to show off. And, yeah, so this one is, This might seem like an odd one to end on because it's not the most memeable, it's not the most interesting, it's not the weirdest concept, but this is the plush that when I saw this, when I saw this online and I saw this was available for pre-order, I thought we are about to see a major return to form for Garfield. And this is what it is. It's Garfield, and he's in a little karate outfit. Now, that might seem random. It might seem random that the plushie that makes me excited for the future of this character is Garfield in a little karate outfit. Let me explain. Some of you still might not understand what I'm getting at. My favorite Garfield plushies are ones where Garfield is in a little outfit, okay? And for years, it's felt like we've had people handling the Garfield brand, and specifically Garfield plushies, that haven't understood how that's the coolest thing that comes out of Garfield. It's Garfield dressed up as a little fireman, or, dressed up as a little clown, or, any of the other things that got up here, vampires, superheroes, whatever. Garfield dressed up in little outfits is the coolest kind of plushies because they're the most collectible. And I just like that they went for kind of an outfit where you can take this plushie and you can compare it to the original Dakin plushie. And you can kind of, take a moment and be like, wow, And I'm just really hoping that this is a sign of good times. This is a sign that the next few years, we're going to have a new wave of Garfield mania. We're going to have all the best Garfield merchandise. And we're going to have more plushies that are as good as this plushie is, in my opinion. The only problem with this plushie, I will say, now looking at it right now, is it is way too skinny. Garfield needs to be fat and proud. But other than that, I'm very happy with what they've done with this. Now, like I said, these aren't the only pieces of Garfield merchandise I've bought this year. I've bought a lot of old, vintage stuff from the 80s to the Bill Murray movies. I've made a couple custom plushies here and there. And I bought some bootleg plushies this year. I don't know if I've said that yet. I've imported a ton of bootleg merchandise, and one day on this channel, when we escape the iCarly stuff and I can go back to Knockoff November, one day I'd like to have a Knockoff November on the main channel, and then on the second channel, a video just about all that bootleg merchandise that I've bought from overseas. And then, of course, I got this clock, which at this point I'm pretty sure is a bootleg from Soviet Russia. But I just wanted to do this video to kind of talk about how I think in terms of merchandise, in terms of the brand, we're in a good place right now, but we're in a very basic place. And I think we really right now are seeing the fundamental building blocks for Garfield to find his footing again. And I'm very excited for that. I'm very excited for 2023 and even more for the brand 2024 with the release of the Garfield animated movie. So to all the Garfield lovers out there, thank you so much for watching. I don't know how your year was. Mine was bad. I'm hoping next year it'll get a little bit better. With that, I've been Quentin Re2s, and that's all you need.